Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Latrobe City Council's monthly council meeting, which is being held tonight at Kernet Hall in Morwell. Tonight's meeting will be held with councillors and guests joining us in person and virtually. Tonight I'm pleased to welcome our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Lund, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Law, Councillor Middlemis, Councillor Callaghan, and also welcome Steve Pearseni, who is Latrobe City Council's Chief Executive Officer, and we've got our executive team over here on the right. We now move on to the recognition of the traditional owners of the land. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting tonight on the traditional land of the Baralakong people of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. If there are other elders present, I'd also like to acknowledge them. Moving on to some housekeeping matters, we conduct our council meetings under the governance rules currently in place. We welcome all members of the public attending, both via the live stream and in person, and where appropriate to those participating in council meeting as a registered speaker. I thank you for respecting protocols of the meeting, which ensures we can extend the appropriate courtesy and respect throughout our meeting tonight. If councillors and any members of the public speaking tonight could ensure that they speak directly into the microphone to ensure that they can be heard within the room and via the live stream. I've requested that speakers are supported to meet the 3-minute time limit. Members of the public speaking will receive a warning bell with 30 seconds to go, and then again when it expires. Okay, so item 2, apologies. Do we have any apologies tonight, Mr. CEO?
We do, Mr. Mayor. So from Councillor Gibson, it's an apology tonight.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes, which is commencing on page 4 of tonight's agenda. Councillors, do I have a motion? Okay, moved by Councillor Middlemis, seconded by Councillor Law. Would you like to address the motion, Councillor Middlemis?
No, thank you.
All in favour? Oh no, we don't need a vote. Yes, we do. I keep forgetting that one. We don't need a vote if we don't speak, is it? No, no worries. So that's passed. Just give you a second, I'll get this done. Beautiful. Okay, declarations of interest, item 4. Could any councillor please declare any general or material conflict of interest regarding the matters being heard tonight? Yes, Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Have a general interest on item 6.2 and have previously advised the CEO in writing of this.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Okay, let's move on to item 5, which is public participation. There's an opportunity for any member of the public to lodge a question to be answered at tonight's council meeting to clarify issues of public interest. Eligible questions received in writing by noon on Friday prior to the council meeting will be responded to by the CEO. For tonight's council meeting, we have 2 questions. The first question is by Taylor Ling regarding the adopted customer behaviour policy. The second is from Benito Gazzardi regarding a differential rate for retirement villages. I'll now pass you over to our CEO to provide the question and the response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as you said, the first question is from Taylor Ling. Welcome, Taylor. I see you in the audience there, and it's related to our customer behaviour policy. So the question is, how many people have had contact, communication or access with the council restricted via council's customer behaviour policy? So in response to that, since the adoption of the customer behaviour policy at the September 2023 council meeting, one individual has been issued with a notice due to unacceptable behaviour which restricts the way in which that individual can interact with council. The second question is from Benito Gazzardi, as the Mayor said, and it's related to differential rates for retirement villages. So the question is, what community consultation / engagement has been undertaken to inform the decision not to implement a differential rate for retirement villages this year? Is the first question, and the second part of that question is, what is the proposed community consultation process in the coming year, given there will also be a review of the revenue and rating plan? So in relation to the first question, I can advise that as part of the development of the 2024-25 budget, consideration was given to creating a differential rate that would offer a discount on rates for ratepayers residing at a retirement village. At this stage, though, council officers have not recommended to council that a differential rate should be introduced for retirement villages. Council will tonight consider placing the draft budget on public exhibition. If that report is adopted by Council, the draft budget will be placed on exhibition until 5th of May 2024, and the community is encouraged to review the draft budget and make a submission on any element of the budget, including the proposed differential rate structure. All submissions will then be considered by Council in May, and the budget adopted and or amended where appropriate. The final format of the budget will then be presented at the June Council meeting for consideration and adoption. The final consideration of whether Council should introduce a separate differential rate for retirement villages will be made following the engagement process outlined. And in relation to the second question, Section 93 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires Council to prepare a revenue and rating plan after the general election with adoption by 30th of June 2025. The proposed community consultation process for the plan has not been developed at this stage. However, it will be developed in line with Council's community engagement policy and in consultation with councillors in late 2024. That's the response to the questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Okay, tonight we have 9 members of the public who are registered to speak at tonight's council meeting. Speakers have 3 minutes in which to address council in relation to the matters they have registered to speak about. At the conclusion, councillors have the opportunity to ask questions to the speaker. Before we commence with speakers tonight, councillors, as a reminder, I want it noted that our governance rules allows councillors to ask questions of the speaker to clarify a point that has been raised by the speaker. An opportunity to make statements is available to councillors during debate on the agenda item. So tonight our first speaker is David Roberts, who is speaking in regard to item 8.2, the draft fence dog information. Thanks, Mr Roberts.
Thank you. Mr Mayor and councillors, I stand before you today to express my thanks for the efforts made by Latrobe City Council to enhance our community's well-being through the establishment of fenced dog parks. However, the current draft plan before you tonight is exclusive and fails to provide for part of our community simply based on the breed of dogs people have adopted. Of course, I'm referring to greyhounds, of which there are over 160 registered pets within Latrobe City, a number that will continue to rise as breeding numbers by racing industry far outweighs current adoption rates. I'm a proud greyhound owner of 2 and I'm founder of the Latrobe Valley Greyhound Group. We have over 180 online members and have over 20 greyhounds attending every event held almost weekly in Latrobe City Council. Our membership includes people with a connection to the racing industry, as well as those who are oppose both racing and gambling. However, we are united in wanting the same for our dogs, whether they identify as retired, rescued or rehomed. Whilst the council report cites financial viability concerns for establishing parks solely for one breed, it is essential to recognise the growing population of greyhounds in our community and their right to equal access to facilities. Numerous councils across Australia have successfully implemented greyhound-specific parks, demonstrating the feasibility and importance of such initiatives. Council was prepared to implement parks in Tyres with 180 registered dogs and Toongabbie with 190. I ask you, could savings from reducing parks in smaller communities, as recommended tonight, help fund a centrally located greyhound park? Your report also refers to advocating to Greyhound Racing Victoria as their responsibility for retired greyhound facilities. However, should there be a collaboration between Council and GRV, it is imperative that these be inclusive and be a neutral location, respecting people's diverse opinions regarding the racing industry. Facilities should not be at a racetrack, and they should not only be a standard slipping track that is designed for racing dogs. We need to ensure and provide opportunities for free play and off-leash exploration that is afforded to other breeds. Council has an opportunity to lead the way in Gippsland with an off-leash greyhound park, one that caters for residents and for potentially increases visitation to the region for both short and long stays, especially as travelling with pets is becoming more and more popular. I urge the Council to consider the needs of greyhounds as pets, to anticipate increasing numbers in the years to come, and to allocate timelines and a 3-year review within the implementation plan. In conclusion, let us work together to ensure that our community remains inclusive and supportive of all its members, including our cherished greyhounds. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you, David. Questions? Councillor Clancy, sorry.
I'll let you get that out. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your presentation. You mentioned about where it shouldn't be, and I get that, being not at a racetrack. And you mentioned that there are numerous councils around Australia. What do they look like elsewhere?
There is a guideline that's out. So I think Animal Welfare Victoria has a set of guidelines for greyhound off-leash parks. But there are some in Launceston and Keysborough in Tasmania, and also I think Moonee Valley has started one in Victoria as well, or certainly it's been before council and got support. So I think it's taking into effect that greyhounds obviously run fast, so they're a sight hound as well, so it needs to provide little distractions for them, but enough space for them to turn and manoeuvre as well, and obviously why greyhounds, even if they were allowed to, shouldn't be in a dog park with other dogs, just because of their speed and going from 0 to 60 in 3 strides is something that's probably hazardous to themselves and to other dogs as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Callaghan.
G'day, Dave.
Go, Kelly.
You know my biases, and they're German Shepherds, not greyhounds, but I'll ask you the question nonetheless. At the moment, can you give us an indication of what your members are doing in terms of accessibility for off-leash opportunities locally?
Currently, we've got a relationship with Toongabbie Lodge. The difficulty for us in that space is it is an open space. It does have great facilities. It's owned by Sandown Racetrack, so it is a little bit divisive for our group, and some of our members won't attend there because it is owned by the racing industry, and that's been a challenge for us. And while we don't, within our group, we don't sort of talk about racing and have those opinions, we do certainly know that we've got members both within the racing fraternity as well as those that are opposed to it as well. So again, coming back to that point, that it needs to be something that is neutral in that space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Lord.
Thanks, Dave. Is it just purely because of the speed of the greyhound, or is it like it might take a little chihuahua on his way through?
Look, I think there's certainly. I think one of the issues is their injuries to the dogs. They have thin skin as well. So when we do race, when we do have free play out at Toongabbie Lodge, for example, we muzzle our dogs as well as a safety precaution, because due to their speed, and if they do grab another dog as they're going past, they have fairly thin skin. So the chances of them having rough play with another dog would do damage to the greyhound. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're reactive to other dogs, but certainly that's probably part of it as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No? No? Thanks, David.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks. Okay, our next speaker tonight is Taylor Ling, who's speaking in regard to item 8.3, petition requesting changes to the governance rules. Yep. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Ling.
Hey. We're all good? Yep. The petition rules that Latrobe City Council has in place severely restricts the democratic right of your residents. As it stands, Latrobe City Council is the only council in Victoria that explicitly rejects third-party e-petitions. The report provided in the agenda is not accurate. On page 329, the report states that not all councils allow e-petitions to be considered. On Friday, I sent an email to all councillors and our CEO with attachments to prove that no other council in Victoria outrightly rejects e-petitions like Latrobe City Council's governance rules do. Yes, some councils require the CEO or council by resolution to accept an e-petition, but this is substantially better than what our council currently has in place. Some councils' governance rules don't mention e-petitions at all, but what needs to change is Latrobe City's governance rules that explicitly reject third-party e-petitions. Surely you can all see the irony that if a resident is dissatisfied with Latrobe City Council, these rules make them request to petition the council. Not only this, but for this petition in question to get off the ground, it took me 4 weeks before my request was approved. And then it was only after I looked it up myself that I realised that it had been approved and was up and running on the council's site. I was sent an email after I had already started sharing the link around, so I don't actually know how long it was live for. The report also argues that there is not a great demand for e-petitions. This isn't true. Of the 5 petitions that have been hosted on your e-petition facility, my petition garnered the second highest amount of signatures. There are over 100 people that don't want their rights restricted. So I ask, if this isn't significant enough, what is? With rights come responsibilities. The argument for not changing these rules largely comes back to wanting to ensure that your residents are following the guidelines. This responsibility sits with the head petitioner and those signing the petition to ensure that it is actionable. The argument that this somehow risks privacy, while understandable to an extent, also takes away the autonomy of your residents. This is a risk and responsibility of those signing the petition. We are very aware that the governance rules were changed last year. Many of those who took part in the consultation and spoke at the meeting were disregarded. Our concerns and requests were ignored, and the officer's recommendation for this petition is to again ignore the community's requests. I'll be frank, Latrobe City Council doesn't have a great track record when it comes to facilitating their residents' democratic rights. Just last year, there was a peaceful protest outside our council meeting, and then following this, our council moved the council meetings online for months. And now, when confronted with the truth that your governance rules are the most restrictive in the state, your officers have recommended you do nothing to remedy this. I want to extend an invite to all councillors to take this opportunity to show your residents that you do support our democratic rights and petition freely and unrestricted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Ling. Any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Harriman.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, can I get clarity on the item that Ms Ling raised on page 329 in the report and the claim that there's incorrect information on it?
Okay.
Can I get clarity as to who's right?
We did provide some additional information to councils today that highlighted, I think, 81% of councils specifically identify e-petitions in their governance rules, and there's a number that are silent. So I think the item that Ms Ling has raised in terms of not all councils allow e-petitions to be considered is probably a bit of an overreach in terms of that assessment. I agree with that it's really, they're silent on the matter. Is what the governance rules say. That does go on to state the next line in that paragraph, which was that we are the only council that does provide the option for an electronic petition on our own website. The rest leave it to the discretion either as to the CEO to consider or through a council resolution, or they're silent on that matter. The 81% though of councils that do allow petitions don't specifically say how they're to be managed, where we are a council that does say how they are specifically to be managed. So in answer to that, I hope that helps clarify.
No, thank you for that.
Thank you, Steve. Another question? Thank you.
Just a question for Ms Ling, if I can, Mr Mayor. Ms Ling, would you see it as beneficial to sit down with our officers and actually go through what you're trying to achieve?
Sorry, Councillor, you're asking question. The question needs to relate to what she spoke about.
Yeah, all right. You're saying in there you don't think what we've got is democratic. Do you have a solution for making it more democratic? And could you discuss that with the officers?
Yeah, I'd be absolutely open to having a chat with the officers. I think that there are, as I said in my speech, I completely understand that there are concerns and I respect those concerns. However, I am a big believer of self-responsibility. We don't need, with all due respect, we don't need our council acting as our parent to tell us it's not safe. You don't get to do it. We're adults, we can mitigate those risks and follow them if we choose to go down that path. I think that there are alternatives though that could remedy this restriction. If your concern is that change.org, as it was said in the agenda, change.org sells on some people's private information. I don't know the truth of this, I haven't looked into it, but an alternative could be simply opening up the petition you already have, the petition facility that you have on your website, and allow us to make a petition instantly without needing to be requested, needing to request that our petition be approved. I'd be very happy to sit down and have a chat about this, and I would be appreciative if I could have this other information sent to me, because I haven't had this other information sent to me, and I'd be interested to see what you've been sent, just to compare it to what I have here.
Thank you, Ms Ling. Any other questions, councillors? No? No worries. Thanks, Ms Ling.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, our next speaker tonight, folks, is Linda Reid, who is speaking also on item 8.3, the petition requesting changes to the governance rules. Thanks, Ms Reid.
Thank you, councillors. I'm speaking tonight in support of the council officer's recommendation not to change the governance rules around petitions submitted to council. I note that there were 102 valid signatures. There were initially 116 signatories. However, of these, 14 were invalid, 11 were duplicate entries, and 3 did not meet the information requirements. This is a great example that the current system works. And when looked at, 102 signatures is a very small percentage of the community wanting change. Compare this to the substantial community consultation that took place in October last year at considerable time and ratepayer expense, and there was no mention of e-petitions at that time. I strongly believe that the overriding wishes of the community at large should be adhered to and not altered at the behest of a small group. This is an issue that affects all of Latrobe Valley. During a community conversation contacted by the Australian Council of Social Services and the Council of the Aged last year in Latrobe Valley, which I should add, all residents were invited to and was advertised extensively, research done by these reputable groups noted that access to technology, emails, internet, sufficient data, etc., was extremely limited by family finances in many cases. For a growing number of families, the need to provide food on the table, access medical services, getting children to school, etc., is the priority. Just look at the increase in families utilising food banks. Consider that many areas within Latrobe Valley are in a black spot where phone calls may be hit and miss, never mind the internet and accessing an e-petition if they know about it. Research was also presented at this time that our older population, for our older population, something like an e-petition is a barrier to them. They won't be able to have a say in what they consider important. But talk to them about an issue, and if they agree, they're more than capable of signing and providing their name, address, as well as having the opportunity to ask questions and to have a chat. These are two very important and arguably disadvantaged groups that may not be able to participate in an e-petition. That's not democracy. These are people that all of you as councillors represent and have a duty to ensure that their right to participate is protected. Also, that decisions are made in the best interest of the people that have elected you. I believe in the community voice and the people of Latrobe Valley. Petitions in their current format have a history of achieving some great things, such as GPAC, the Aquatic Centre, the Latrobe Valley Synthetic Field. All of these great initiatives had paper-based petitions which were spread across Latrobe Valley and driven by the community and people that care. It's not that hard, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Reid. Any questions tonight, councillors? No? No, thank you. Our next speaker, who's also speaking on 8.3, is Oscar Mashin. Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can we hear me all right? We're all good?
Whenever you... yeah,
perennial problem.
We'll sit down. Just start whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you. Well, look, I'm here today to also talk about the petition requesting changes to governance rules. I just wanted to speak to this petition in order to basically just encourage councillors to leave the rules as they are. I don't personally think the rules need to be changed. I don't think there's any substantial reason for changing them. I think one of the most significant reasons for why these rules don't need to be changed is that we are standing here today debating and speaking on a petition that was submitted successfully and with a great number of submissions. I think that's a pretty solid piece of evidence to say that the current petitioning system works well. From personal experience and talking to others who have submitted petitions in the past, I know that a lot of people have found the council staff very helpful and very useful to show them how to do the process and how to get signatures and how to meet the rules as they're written. One of the most important things I wanted to talk about, though, was the fact that this petition asks to simply remove 3 rules from the council's guidance rules. One of those in particular that caught my eye, and I'm a stickler for rules. I do quite like governance rules generally. One of those rules removes the word count limit on petitions. I think I wanted to raise that as a point because I think it's really something that a lot of council staff shouldn't have to deal with as a matter of course. I think it would, to remove a word count limit on petitions and let people submit petitions that could be as long as Moby Dick or War and Peace, as long as they got 10 or more signatures, would be just a monumental waste of the council's time and council staff's time as well. You know, there's a lot of really important things that council does on a day-to-day basis, and I think this is not something that needs to be changed. Put it simply, the system works fine. I also wanted to point out that the Parliament of Victoria and the Federal Parliament as well, Commonwealth Parliament, also have petitioning systems and e-petitioning systems that are more or less very similar to the one that Latrobe City Council already has. They also have very similar word limits, 300, 250 words, and then, you know, they are more or less the same systems as the one this council currently uses. And I think if it's good enough for the other 2 levels of government, I think it's fine enough for the Latrobe City Council. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, thanks, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Oscar. Nice to meet you in person, not behind the keyboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would you think that it's okay for local level of government to differ with their processes to state and federal? Because sometimes, you know, it's described as the closer level to the people, and sometimes different engagement processes and things can help at a local level more so than what they would at state and federal, who don't have to be quite as on the ground as what we are. So I'm just wondering, like, saying that it's in line with the state and government processes, whether you'd consider that perhaps local government is a little different.
I mean, yeah, your local government is different, but in relation to these changes that have been suggested in the petition, I don't think it's. I don't think these changes really add anything, or in fact, they remove things that basically would. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that they don't actually change anything for the better. They simply allow the system to be essentially abused or used in a way that would be to the detriment of council, would essentially waste council officers' time having to deal with petitions that have no set format, for example. It's one of the rules that are removed, or it could be as long as anyone likes. Like I said, could stick as many words in there as you want. Conciseness is important when we're putting forward an issue, and a set format where you can collect signatures in a way that everybody understands what it looks like and everybody knows what it's meant to appear as. There is flexibility in the rules for councils to do things differently. I think Taylor Ling herself sort of spoke to that before, but what's actually being proposed here is just taking rules out with no replacement and not actually putting in any new structures.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
So do you think that the other e-platforms actually have their own structure already, because they would have a word limit and a summary and a structure to it?
Mm-hmm.
So by eliminating the possibility of including that, wouldn't that add structure?
So this petition removes the requirement for a word limit.
So if someone does an e-petition through one of the e-petition sites, it's structured.
Mm-hmm.
There's limitations, there's all the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't by including those other options by which we could do in a petition actually add structure anyway?
So if you
It just provides more options, but they're already structured, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What I would just say to that is that, again, it's a question of whether you can put something concisely and when you could actually just structure like what you're trying to put forward, which is again, it's pretty common practice across these kinds of things, that if you can just put the argument succinctly, then, that's the best way and the easiest way to do it for everyone involved. Again, like I said, the state government has a 320 word limit. Federal government has a 250 word limit. These things aren't set in stone. What I'm saying is to have no limit at all and to just say, well, you can stick whatever you want, because that would be effectively, as far as I would read it and as far as I think others would read it, is that if you were to remove that clause entirely, there would just be nothing in the guidance rules about how long a petition needs to be. Or in one of the other rules that is removed, what form the petition needs to take. At the moment, there's a set format that a petition needs to take. That's one of the rules that this petition seeks to remove. So you could write it on the back of a cardboard box. You could write it on a whiteboard. As long as you don't write it in grey lead. I believe that's one of the other clauses that isn't being removed. So structure has a purpose. It's there for a reason. It doesn't mean it's not flexible, but it exists for a reason.
Thank you. One more question? Yep.
So do you think that the other e-platforms, though, for the part of the community that are time poor in this day and age, does provide a quicker way to sort of petition? And obviously that not everybody may necessarily need the officer's time. Like, we can't assume that, but people can't put together a concise summary of what their petition's for, because that'd be a bit patronising to sort of assume they can't. But I'm sure they would still reach out should they need some help somewhere. Couldn't that still be an option provided on the side? What do you think?
Sorry, can I just ask to clarify? Do you mean, I'm not sure what your question is asking, because my understanding is that Latrobe City Council does provide those services. However, this petition doesn't speak to those at all. And my only mention of them was to say that they're quite useful. I think I was sort of referring to your comment earlier about how...
Sorry, yes, can we just get a concise question to Oscar? You can answer it.
Pardon? Hang on, who's the mayor? Sorry.
Sorry.
Yep.
Fair go. Graham just asked the same question, just for clarification. That's reasonable.
Yeah, so whatever Oscar said, you can ask questions about anything you don't understand.
Yeah, and I was just going to clarify to him which part I was speaking to. Thank you. So what I was... Now, of course, that's sidetracked me off my line of thought. But I think when you're saying it would waste the officer's time, that a lot of the public in general wouldn't actually...
The question, sorry.
Yep. So do you think that they would necessarily, a large portion of those people would actually need help from the officers?
Well, I wouldn't say, some people might. It may be as simple as for example, when I registered to come here and speak today, I called up. I rang because I just didn't have the time to jump on and use the online platform. I just rang because it was easier. There are some people who probably, out of the speakers here, there's probably a few of them that use the online platform. There's probably some that called like I did. People approach this stuff differently, and so council staff have a role to play in helping them in however they approach that, whether it's online or over the phone. Look, I'm not, I couldn't speak for everyone in this council area as to how they want to approach this stuff. I think it's more important that, in fact, I would say that that's probably a good reason for why the rules should be in place, and there should be structures and limits, and formats that this stuff comes in. Again, it's much easier for someone to go out and actually get signatures and get information that's needed if there is already a template for getting those signatures, which again this petition seeks to remove. It's much easier to write an argument that councillors and council staff can understand and find a solution to the problem within that request if they have a limit on how many words they can write down, instead of being given as much space as possible to dump everything in. It's not a question of, it's really more of a, it's a format, and it's a structural question more than anything else, and staff can already do help with this process, and I think removing these rules just makes their job harder, and it makes, the petitioner's job actually a lot harder as well in the long run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you, Oscar.
Thank
Okay. Our next speaker tonight is Mr Rob Sousador. He's speaking in regard to item 8.9, the roads, facility and place naming. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Thanks, councillors, for the opportunity to speak on this subject again. I ask councillors tonight to support the officer's recommendation. It's a step forward. It's a small step forward because this process has been going on for nearly 12 years. Most of the time, nothing, of course, happened, but I'm pleased to see that this step forward is a step in the right direction of giving the public in the Latrobe City and community organisations the right and the opportunity to nominate worthy names of people, places or achievements in future naming of the Latrobe City. I understand this is now a two-step process. First of all, the establishment of a register, and this is what tonight's resolution does. And I understand subsequently consideration will be given to formalising the actual process of naming future names in the Latrobe City. I wish to make a couple of comments in relation to the recommendation. I think it's important that when people submit suggestions for the new register, they get an acknowledgement from the Latrobe City officers, A, that it's been received. Second, I believe that it's appropriate to request that officers respond, say, within 3 or 4 weeks, that the names that have been suggested by the submitter be decided acceptable or rejected, and if so, the reasons why. This point is not stated in the recommendation or in the outworking. In the past and under the present system, any member of the community can submit a name for the purpose of naming. That's stated in this document tonight, and it's stated in the Geographic Names Victoria. But what they don't say is that nothing will be done about it, because almost all new names in the Latrobe City and other places arises from subdivisions. I ask that consideration be given to, in implementing this register, that people A, get acknowledged, and B, shortly afterwards, they get a second notification that the name has been accepted for the register for future naming, and if not, why not? And it may simply be because there's an existing name by that name already in use, or alternatively, a similar name within the required 15 kilometres. I ask Council to support the motion by the officers that is put forward to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr Sousador. Do we have any questions, councillors? No? No. Thank you, Rob. Okay. Our next speaker tonight is Stephanie Morgan, who's speaking in regard to item 8.10, opening item for council meeting agenda.
Good evening. So to begin with, I'd just like to say that the previous decision to discontinue the use of the Lord's Prayer in the opening of council meetings was an overall good decision, a decision that shows respect for the diversity of our constituency, of our councillors and the officers and other members of staff who work for council, while also protecting the rights of everyone within this municipality to freedom of religion and freedom from religion. I'd just like to note that we live in a community of diverse faith, and an Anglican prayer at the beginning does not reflect the people who practice one of more than 18 sects of Christianity within the Latrobe City Council area, let alone our whole community. Should the Lord's Prayer be replaced with anything else, I believe the adoption of a statement of value and commitment could provide the council with a powerful opportunity to instil long-standing cultural change. A short statement of values in line with other Victorian councils could be a valuable tool and provide a moment for councillors to reflect upon their values, their roles and their work. To reflect upon the values of the organisation, the values of the diverse community by whom they have been elected to represent, the values we wish to portray to the world around us, their roles as councillors, the functions and responsibilities of their role, the principles under which they are legally obligated to perform as laid out in legislation, including the consideration of the diverse interests and needs within the municipality, and their conduct in their role towards community, towards other councillors and towards council staff. So, look, I don't have a strong opinion on which way council votes on this, but I do implore you all as you consider the outcome of this, to reflect upon the oath you took upon election to council, and to also consider how a change in this, whether it's a moment of silence or a statement of values, can reflect the future of this community and really show what we want to see in council. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, councillors? No. Thank you, Ms Morgan. Thanks for the town speaking tonight. Okay, our next speaker is speaking on item 12.1, notice and motion for the sponsorship of the Gippslandia magazine. Is Lacey Yeomans, who's be speaking virtually with us tonight. So, Lacey, if you weren't here earlier, you get 3 minutes to speak. There'll be a bell at 30 seconds to go, then there'll be a final bell on the 3 minute mark, and then there may be questions asked. I don't think the audio's connected.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask if the IT can put it up on a bigger screen so councillors can see it?
Certainly.
Difficult for Councillor Ferguson and Law to see at that angle.
Sorry, Lacey, can you hear us?
No, I don't think the audio's connected. That's a little...
Okay.
Some tech issues at our end. Not sure what the problem is. So I don't think, Mr Mayor, that Lacey's connection's working. I said a little ellipsis, I think it's called, dots bubbling along there. So we might have to maybe get someone to get in touch with Lacey, whether you want to bring the next speaker in. Is that possible, team?
We've got Mr Calabro in the room. I hope not. Is there another speaker that we can bring in while we work this one out?
Team's just working on it.
Okay. Okay.
Still saying, I'm not sure if that connection's working just yet either.
Where's this?
Oh, there he is. There's a tick. No, that's David from the audit committee, so
We can do him.
sorry. I'm going to move to that one maybe.
Yeah, we can.
Go
Yeah,
with that,
we
it
can
might be
even
a bit easier, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
So it's for item 13.1, Mr Mayor.
Yep. Okay, so this is David Cottram. He's the chair of the Latrobe City Council's Audit and Risk Committee. He'll be speaking to us on item 13.1, which is the tabling of the Audit and Risk Committee biannual report and annual self-assessment. David, can you hear us all right?
I can, thank you.
It's great, we can hear you as well. So whenever you're ready, sir, you can start.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to present the 6-monthly report on the Audit and Risk Committee. A couple of key takeouts from the report is recently Miss Beverly Excel has finished her term with the council. She served on the committee for 9 years, which was a great effort and provided obviously great leadership to the committee and management. Since then, we've been replaced Beverly's role with Miss Jane Watson, who brings a lot of local government expertise and experience to the committee. In the last 6 months, the management and the committee have embarked on a pretty ambitious program of work. The risk management program continues to mature, both in a design and operating effectiveness perspective. There's been a significant program of work around cybersecurity, which obviously is definitely needed in the current environment. The council has also embarked on a significant insurance program review and have recently updated the fraud corruption policy and plan. As part of the Audit and Risk Committee's charter, we also oversee the internal audit function. Recently, we've had a detailed audit in child safety standards, which obviously, given the importance of the role that council plays in the community, making sure that management had appropriate controls in place was significantly important. So in terms of my role as the chair, we've received really positive feedback from both internal and external auditors of the work that management undertake. The risk program continues to go from strength to strength, and I think there's great culture and tone from the top around risk management. So, Chair, obviously very pleased with the progress that the committee has made in recent months. Really value the contribution that the council has made to the committee, and happy to open to questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions for David? No questions, David. Thanks for tuning in tonight and giving your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, try again. Lacey, how are you?
No, I think it's still trying to connect, and it's still said a little Zoom connection there. No tick there yet, is there? Yeah, I think it. Yeah. Connection at Lacey's end, not being able to get through for some reason. Not sure if we have the other speaker, John.
Mr. Calabro.
Mr. Calabro online, ready to, maybe we can swap the two over and see if there's anything further we can do for Lacey.
We need to see that, don't we?
Yep. No, I think given the circumstances, you might be able to allow that. Mr. Calabro's connection may have worked.
Good evening, Mr. Calabro. You can hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you for having me.
No, fantastic.
I can't see who I'm talking to there, so apologies if I address you in the wrong manner.
No, that's quite all right. You're speaking tonight on the notice of motion, which is 12.1, the sponsorship of the Gippslandia magazine. You have 3 minutes to speak. You'll get a bell at the 30 seconds to go, and then you'll get a bell on the 3-minute mark. And then there may be some questions from the councillors, so if you could just stick around to see. And you can start whenever you're ready, sir.
Absolutely. Much appreciated, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak, and to Councillor Harriman for putting forward the motion. Gippslandia, for those who haven't been acquainted, is a local not-for-profit organisation. I am from a design studio called The View From Here, and Gippslandia is its own entity separate to us, of which I am one of the directors. Gippslandia has a purpose to create connections that inspire the people, businesses and organisations of Gippsland. Those connections take many forms, usually of stories, articles, photographic essays, videos and podcasts, but the most common form for Gippslandia is the magazine in a newspaper format that finds itself available to be picked up for free in cafes, shops and council-run facilities right across Gippsland's 6 LGAs. The common thread is always to paint the entire region of Gippsland in a positive and optimistic light. The articles share the successes of locals, inspire and engage our youth in dialogue about the region, give a voice to quiet minority groups who may get overlooked by mainstream media, and the articles show Gippsland as a world-class place to live and work. Gippslandia shows Gippsland at its best. The magazine represents all local councils and its people and is entirely community-led. No government agenda, no political agenda, no personal agenda, just good news stories and hope. In 2016, 8 years ago, roughly, Gippslandia was born out of the earth-shattering news that Hazelwood was about to close. Coal, the backbone of the Gippsland economy, was being shown the door, and Gippslandia was our own personal effort at taking ownership of the dialogue and steering it towards a positive outcome. To say this change is in fact a once-in-a-generation opportunity, we saw that as an opportunity to rethink the future of living in Gippsland. And we wanted to put those thoughts into print so that everyone could see it and get along for the ride. And all of Gippsland has benefited from this representation, none less so than Latrobe Valley. And we did it because we love living here and we want to see an ever-improving livability factor, which we think stimulates economic prosperity. In 8 years, my own business and countless others have contributed to keep Gippslandia afloat, and now our resources are running thin. We ask that you support Councillor to help Gippslandia keep the positive dialogue alive and well across Gippsland. Thank you for your consideration, and in advance, we just really appreciate the sentiment that we're getting tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just see if there's any questions, sir. Any questions, councillors? No questions. Thanks, John. Appreciate you coming on and speaking.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Okay, how do we go with Lacey? Okay. One more go.
One more try.
Third time.
Looks good. You can tick there. Yep.
Lacey, can you hear us?
Hello.
Okay. Lacey, you can hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Fantastic.
Oh, I'm so sorry about before.
No, that's okay. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and then you'll get a bell when there's 30 seconds to go, and then you'll get another bell on the 3-minute mark, and then there may be some questions from the councillors.
Okay.
So,
Wonderful.
When you're comfortable, you can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to councillors. As you've mentioned, my name is Lacey. I'm Lacey Omens, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight about a publication that I am a passionate advocate for, and that is for Gippslandia. From the very beginning, Gippslandia has been more than just a publication to me. It's been a source of inspiration, it's a canvas for creativity, and it's a testament to the vibrant life that we lead here in Gippsland. My journey with Gippslandia has involved roles that have been as a volunteer to being a paid employee and also a contributor of stories and illustrations. All of these roles have deepened my bond with this remarkable platform over the past 8 years. Gippslandia stands out from typical local media by focusing on storytelling that brings to light our region's lifestyle, its diversity and its optimism. It's not just about delivering news, it's a celebration of Gippsland through the stories of those who have always called it home and to those who have decided to make it their home too. This publication has the power to shift perceptions, revealing the extraordinary in the ordinary, whether it's through the lens of the local artists honing their craft, to the innovative startup founders dreaming big, the dedicated teachers shaping our future, mum and dad down the road operating from their farm. It's the young entrepreneurs taking bold steps, or the community volunteers making a difference. Gippslandia tells our stories with authenticity and flair, demonstrating that our regional narrative is not only compelling and diverse, but filled with optimism. Gippslandia's presentation is also second to none. People have compared it to top-tier publications like Broadsheet, as it enhances the reader's experience, and we do that very well through visually appealing illustrations and photography. Overall, the mission is clear: to continue amplifying the voices of Gippsland through captivating storytelling. Our stories are our legacy and they're our strength, And with Gippslandia, we have a dedicated platform to share these stories in a manner that resonates, educates, inspires. So the question isn't about how we keep telling the stories of Gippslandians, it's how can we afford not to. Our stories matter, and with your support, Gippslandia will continue to be the vessel that carries them far and wide, celebrating the essence of our region. Thank you so much for hearing me tonight.
Thank you, Lacey. Do we have any questions, councillors? There's no questions, Lacey, so I appreciate you coming on and speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just want to check, team, can we get the presentation back up on we've got the Zoom meeting on both screens, so. In front of the councillors.
Okay, councillors, we're up to item 6, strategic items for decision. There's 4 items in this section, the first one being 6.1, consultation results on the proposed reopening of Chestnut Avenue, Morwell, commencing on page 6 of the agenda. Councillors, do we have a motion? Yes, moved. Councillor Middlemiss, seconded. Councillor Lund. Anyone's against? No. Councillor Middlemiss, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's interesting seeing there's been a lot of discussion already about how petitions are handled, that this matter actually arose from a petition of people in an area. What we're looking at here is a proposal to reopen a local street which was closed back in the early 80s because it became what was termed a rat run for people taking a shortcut to the Mid-Valley Shopping Centre. The residents in that area were finding it very difficult to even get out of their driveways, and the council of the day, not this council, one of our predecessors, closed that street. A petition was received, signed by a number of people, asking that the road be reopened again. A study was done. The local residents were consulted, and it became very apparent that the overwhelming number of the local residents did not agree with the petition. In fact, it was very clear that the locals did not want this road reopened. So the recommendation that we're voting on today is not to proceed with that the proposal, which hopefully will comfort some of the residents. I ran into one in the foyer as I came in tonight who hadn't read the requirement to register to come to the meeting. I was quite incensed that she wasn't allowed to come in, but never mind. I've calmed her down and with the advice that I think the council will support this. So, Mr Mayor, I suggest that council support this because it reflects the consultation with the people who actually live in and are affected by this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lund, would you like to speak?
Thank you. There's not really much more to say. Councillor Middlemiss has really covered everything. I'd just like to acknowledge the officers for the body of work they have to do when they're consulting with our community, and certainly congratulate the community who engaged in this process, and overwhelmingly it has come back that the desire to keep the street closed is where we need to land. So thank you to everybody that participated, and I think Councillor Middlemiss really did cover everything.
No worries, thank you, Councillor Lund. Any other councillors wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Same to my colleagues, and in relation to the feedback that we've actually received from community members that live in the immediate vicinity of the area that is currently closed, the matters that they were raising are not at all dissimilar to the matters that were raised at the point in time when it was closed to start with. I think some of the concerns they did raise is that the nature of the petition that was brought was not necessarily reflective of their desire for any change. It certainly wasn't reflective of any consideration or approach that they had made. Their concerns continue to remain those of safety, of concern for amenity, a range of factors that are completely consistent with the reasons behind that area being closed off initially, and that there was nothing in part that related to the conversations with any community members, and I certainly had feedback for a number of them as well, that indicated in any way there was any desire, but quite the opposite. Some community members actually felt quite distressed that the matter had been brought as a petition and that they felt that it didn't in any way reflect what their expectations were as the properties in the closest proximity to the area, and it certainly didn't give consideration to due risk. So happy to support the advice of the officers that they bring in relation to this report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak on this matter? Okay, so we shall go to the vote. All in favour? So we've got Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman, we've got Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Minimis, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, second item. You'll leave the room. Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Okay, second item is 6.2, the Traralgon West Precinct Development Plan Process and Addressing Traralgon Golf Club's Concern. This commences on page 12 of our agenda. Councillors, do we have a motion? Okay, move Councillor Clancy.
Happy to move.
Seconded Councillor Law. Any councillors against? Okay, it's over to you, Councillor Clancy.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In December last year, Council resolved to progress the Amendment C144 for a development plan overlay of the Traralgon West Precinct. And the Traralgon West Precinct goes from all the way from Kosciuszko Street right through to Airfield Road and covers a large amount of land. And it also includes the area of the Traralgon Golf Club and the course that's there. During that process in December, we had a number of club members speak to us who raised concerns, and it was put to this council and resolved by this council that the officers will do some further work with the club. And this report that we have in front of us at the moment is just saying that work has been done. That's as simple as it is, as that we did resolve that we would address future strategic planning work with the club. We met with the club in February, the officers did rather, and in this report you'll see quite clearly it's laid out exactly what was put on the attached item in 6.2 on page 20 of the agenda is Part A, Part B and Part C of Stage 2 of that plan. And the officers sat with the club and, according to the officers and as written in this report, positive feedback was given back to the officers from the members of the club that they met with. So we said we were going to do some further work with the golf club around their concerns. We've done that work and this report is noting that.
Thank you. Councillor Law, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, just to follow on from what Councillor Clancy just said, I think this is just the early stage of this C144. It was quite clear that the golf club wanted to be part of the process. We've accommodated their needs, and without doubt that the council staff will be collaborating with them as we move forward, so they're kept up to date on all the progress as this takes, because this is going to take some periods of years to get to an end point, and I'm certain that our staff will take that on board and look after our Traralgon Golf Club members, as it was very passionate for them to come to the meetings, and we will be very passionate in keeping them up to date. Thank you.
It definitely was passionate, I agree. Thank you, Councillor Law. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this item? Yes, thanks, Councillor Minimis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Excuse me. As you are aware, I am Council's appointed chair of the Airport Board of Management, and if one was to look on page 14 of the agenda, at the left-hand or western end, you will see that the study area impacts right on the edge of the airport. It has the potential to cause quite some problems around the operation of the airport. All these will be considered, no doubt, in the detailed processes outlined here. And I hope this report and the discussions with the members of the Traralgon Golf Club have allayed their concerns. I was very keen that happened. So now we can get on to address my concerns. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Councillor Minimis. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? Okay, let's put it to the vote then. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. This motion has been carried. Would somebody like to grab Councillor Harriman, please? We want to sneak one through?
Make a cup of tea, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, that's okay. As long as you didn't eat all the bickies, that's fine.
Good advice.
Okay, item 6.3 is the vehicle crossing policy review. This commences on page 20 of the agenda. Councillors, do we have anyone moving? Yes, thanks. Councillor Law. Any someone the second? Councillor Middlemiss. Anyone oppose? Okay. Councillor Law, up to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think that this is just an update on our last policy that was done on 2011 on all our tapping points, crossings and stormwater connections. So purely just an exercise for our officers to bring us up to speed with all government regulations, and also I think it just addresses probably some concerns that we've had in the community and for developers as well as we move forward, but it's just an update of a policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Middlemiss.
No thanks, Mr Mayor. Covered fully by Councillor Law.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Okay, we'll so put it to the vote. All in favour? Okay, we've got Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. This motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Harriman, I note you. Item 6.4, the Special Charge Scheme Policy Review, commencing on page 51 of the agenda. Councillor Harriman.
Moving an alt, if I may, Mr Mayor.
You've got an alternate motion?
Yep.
Pop that up on the screen, please. Everyone's received a copy of this. Okay. Yes. You're happy to second? Okay, I'll just give everyone a quick 30 seconds to have a quick read, and then we'll have a read. Do you have a copy, Councillor Middlemiss? Thank you. Okay, do we have any councillor in opposition? No? Okay, over you. Sorry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yep.
Raise opposition just to give you the chance to speak, not having seen it. I won't tell you what it's all about.
Okay, so you're in opposition? Yep. Okay. No worries. We don't normally, he doesn't normally need an excuse, but anyway. Over to you, Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Graham, for opposing so I could actually speak. The only change with this to the officer's recommendation is to extend it over 3 financial years. The basic point being that one of the key changes from the policy is that it requires the property owner's contribution increased from a range of 25 to 50% up to 70 to 100%. What the alternate does is actually ask that increase is spread over the next 3 years, so it's an incremental rather than a straight up and down. It just gives our ratepayers the opportunity to, if they need to get in quickly, but to know that it's going to increase and that they're going to be up for 100%. So it was more or less just to extend it over 3 years, just to make the hurt a little bit less. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Oh, thanks, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Clancy, you seconded?
Yeah, so happy to support the alternate motion that's been put forward. The agenda item that was put through and the report that the officers put through, people will be able to read that and see that the special charge scheme needed to be updated. This policy review needed to be updated. The previous policy predated rate capping, so it's actually quite an old policy. But the new policy is a really good spot that we can get to when people do need to go through a special charge scheme. Councillor Harriman's alternate motion gets us to the exact same point as the published agenda. It just gets us there in a gentler fashion. Same outcome, just in a different way of getting there. So this is a good policy, and it's good that it has been reviewed and it brings it up to speed and that it's benchmarked across the other councils across Victoria as well. And I think that this is going to take us into a really good spot, and Councillor Harriman's approach of being dubbed to do it gently over 3 years is a really, really good approach as well. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Councillor Middlemiss, you in opposition?
I speak in opposition, having been persuaded of the logic of the case. Look, just a simple observation. I think it is quite a good idea to bring the change in on a ramp, admittedly a fairly steep ramp, but at least if people are on the point of putting one of these schemes in, they won't have the run into a brick wall, which is. But as Councillor Clancy says, all this review is about rate capping. We don't have the capital anymore. Rate capping limits our capital, so we don't have the capital to subsidise schemes like this, which we've done in the past. And I think everybody should be aware that rate capping is great to keep people's rates down, but when you want to do something big, something dramatic, rate capping is going to make it harder and harder in the coming years. But having been persuaded, I will support the alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Do we have any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Harriman, would you like your right of reply?
No, I think it's all been said. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
No worries, thank you. Okay, let's put it to the vote. Councillors, all in favour? Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you. Okay, we're now into the sevens, which is statutory planning. So 7.1 is the amendment C136, the social and affordable housing and urban design guidelines. Considerations of submissions commencing on page 79 of the agenda. Councillors, do I have a motion? Okay, moved by Councillor Ferguson. Do we have somebody to second? Yep. Seconded by Councillor O'Callaghan. Do we have any opposition?
Somebody. Huh.
No. Okay, over to you, Councillor Ferguson.
I don't really feel the need to speak to this one, so I'll be right.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor O'Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, with the microphone on. There has been a lot of conversation, and certainly there's expectations within communities around social and affordable housing. We know that as a council, we've remained committed to ensuring that any developments in relation to the statewide policies in particular that have been implemented are reflective not only of community expectation but best support and opportunity that does present for community members who do live within social and affordable housing opportunities. We're also being very reflective of the necessary engagement methods that we would need to undertake to ensure the broadest possible opportunity to support communities to participate, and also ensure that our urban design guidelines have been reflected in the work that we're looking to undertake as a council. I know that in a lot of conversations that have been happening, particularly in other areas, the focus of social and affordable housing conversations locally have been reflective of other opportunities, and not to speak of things such as Commonwealth Games, but certainly there were some conversations there in relation to development and imposition of requirements there. We're now looking more to what it is that we would like to achieve, reflecting back further on a lot of the work that you led, in fact, Mr Mayor, as a councillor at the time, around social and affordable housing and the desire that our community has to be supportive of the implementation, but for that development to be appropriate and that in accordance with the obligations that we have, that we submit the adopted amendment together with all the prescribed information that's required to the Minister for Planning, which is an obligation that we have. We will also, of course, move through the process of advising those who have made submissions of the outcome of this. And I just also wanted to thank our officers. This is a huge body of work. So Jodie Reardon and the crew. There is a lot of consideration that needs to take place and many, many years of work around guidelines and opportunities in council planning, and there's a high level of skill that our officers apply to their considerations for this work in bringing these recommendations to us. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Callaghan. Any other councillors wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Harriman. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Being older than you, I think you have to be the beauty one. You go.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Fully support the social and affordable housing plan. I think part of it needs to be, though, that to get social and affordable housing, we need land to be affordable. And at the moment, I did a bit of research on the weekend. We have less than 80 blocks available in Traralgon, vacant blocks for sale, most over 300,000, less than 20 available in Morwell. And at that point, I just gave up. To get land to be affordable, we can't have blocks of land that tight and in that high demand that they're selling for over 300, 400, and in some cases over $500,000 in our region. You know, we had the state government has come out and said it's their objective to get 80,000 new houses per year. We already know they're struggling to get that because the land can't be made available. And I think that's somewhere where we as a council, with adopting this policy, need to look at how we are going about making land available so that the prices come down and that we can actually make it more affordable for not only our residents but also those moving to the area, and that we can put land and have enough land that it's there for social housing as well, which is we don't need, as we have at the moment, people sleeping in cars, families sleeping in cars, victims of domestic violence having nowhere to go. While this is a great policy, we need to make sure that we've got the land available so that those houses can be built, that they're there at a reasonable price, and that we can look forward to homing some of those that are living in cars in Latrobe City at the moment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Sorry, Councillor Middlemis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I fully agree with what Councillor Harriman said about land availability, so I won't labour that point. He's covered it in great detail. This report, after officer report, has had a considerable consultation with our community, and I'm rather proud that our community has completely supported the need for social housing and being prepared to have social housing in our community. There are some rules laid down. I think they're very good rules that we're suggesting to improve the lifestyle of people living in social housing. And so we've done all the work that is required, except for the land availability, and now it's up to the state government. Now, I am a little concerned that there is continual press speculation that the state government is going to call in much of the planning that sits around this and make those decisions themselves. I would suggest to the state government that, having consulted very closely, being the grassroots of a community, having consulted very closely, got the necessary agreement with our community, we are probably the best people to implement this plan. So I would suggest that let's make decisions in Spring Street. Won't fit this plan, won't fit this proposal. I would suggest we have the best suggestion here, and we should be working hand in glove with the state government, not being dictated to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemis. Any other councillor wish to speak? Okay, seriously, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour?
That's
Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Middlemis, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Next on the agenda, we're into the 8s. We've got corporate items for decision. The first one is item 8.1, the proposed sale of Hazelwood House, 59 to 61 Phillip Parade, Churchill. This commences on page 228 of the agenda. Councillor Ferguson, happy to move. Do we have
Yes, please.
Seconder, please? Councillor Clancy, happy to second. Do we have any councillor in opposition? No? Over to you, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. We all know it's misfortunate to see the sale of Hazelwood House fall through, and now it's coming forward, of course, for sale again. So obviously the council have put together a very apt report here, and they're looking at what's going ahead. From what I'm hearing in the community, people obviously would like it sold due to Councillor Middlemis and I making the money quarantined for the Churchill area last year. So, of course, it makes sense to go ahead and try this again. So that's all I've really got to say on it, and I think people just would like to see this come to fruition in our ward and have some results around that, mainly. And I'm glad that it's being addressed, and let's hope the second time round
Thank you. Thank you.
we might get some good results.
Councillor
Thank you.
Ferguson.
Thanks to the
Councillor
officers.
Clancy.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Ferguson's right, second time around. So, you know, from September 2020, when the Hazelwood House was made available, it took us a couple of years to run an expression of interest process, and it's fair to say, you know, that there wasn't a plethora of people knocking on our door through that expression of interest, but it did bring the Quantum to us, and Quantum met with us, and they had a great idea for what the use of the venue was. That has since fallen through, which is very, very sad. That is not able to go ahead. So the recommendation here in front of us is, rather than go back through an expression of interest again, you know, and see what's out there, to undertake the statutory process, which is the Section 114 of the Local Government Act, to offer the sale of property. And this is exactly the same process that we would have for any parcel of land, whether that be a disused laneway or an old block that we might have. It is the exact same process of the Section 114, and we will put that out there, and hopefully through the public advertisements and through that sale process, that we have people who come to us, and that through that process we get a good price. And as Councillor Ferguson says, that money, you know, which originally came from the Churchill community, can go back into the Churchill community. So this recommendation before us at the moment just says that we start that process, and I think that's the best thing that we can possibly do. We can't leave that building sit there any longer without occupancy. We need to get this underway, so happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak? Yes, Councillor Middlemis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just emphasise that this motion modifies the original motion, but does not remove, I love the word, the hypothecation of the funds. They will go back to the Churchill community. Thank you. I thought you might have objected, but you need to nail it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemis. Do we have any other councillors wishing to use large words tonight?
It only behoves us to.
It does. Okay. Let's put it... Everyone does. Let's put it to the vote, please. All in favour? We've got Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman, we've got Councillor Clancy, we've got Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Middlemis, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. You're moving an alt for the next? Okay, thank you. We can just distribute them. Thank you.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Haven't got round that area of the table yet.
Councillor Middlemis.
Got to me, that's all that matters.
Quick off the mark.
Yeah, hypothecating away here.
Okay. Can we just minute that I need a dictionary for our next council meeting, please? Okay, has everyone had a chance to read the alternate motion? Okay. So we've got a mover, we've got a seconder. Do we have any opposition, councillors? Okay. Councillor O'Callaghan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for considering this alt. As you can see,
Actually, you can put
no,
on...
you can't see because it's still coming. Sorry, the
Okay,
councillors
sorry,
have
well-
got it. Can we just... I'll wait for the clock. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
All right.
just to give context, there's a second point that we've added in for some further discussions. Council endorse the fence dog park implementation plan and release the plan to the public via Council's website, but further discussions take place with the Latrobe Valley Greyhound Group regarding breed-specific considerations. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone, you're happy, Mr CEO? It looks the same.
Yeah, that's what they've printed.
Yep, okay. Rightio, we'll start again. Over to you, Councillor Callaghan. 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr Mayor. The nature of this alt is to reflect, firstly, the work within the draft plan, and this work's been underway for quite some time. I think Councillor Middlemiss was mayor when the first dog park had been opened in Traralgon, and that was due for a 12-month review. So there's been a lot of work that's been going on since that point in time to consider fenced dog parks, implementation and future planning. Whilst I note the presentation from Mr Roberts today around the Greyhound Group, I am somewhat reluctant to hold up the entirety of a process that's been in train for a number of years and has communities at this point that are going to be waiting in sequence either for budget or other external opportunities for funding that would be delayed if we don't move ahead with the implementation plan. Having said that, the draft plan, as reflected in the report, is updated on a yearly basis to give considerations to budgets and other factors anyway. So having further conversations with Latrobe Valley Greyhound Group doesn't diminish in any way the capacity of us continuing with the implementation plan as outlined. My council colleagues will be very familiar with a broad range of this work. I more so, as with Councillor Gibson, because we both sit on the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, so we've seen some of the conversations in relation to this. We first endorsed the release of the draft plan in May of 2023. We had the Have Your Say opportunities through our websites. There have been letterbox drops. There's been conversations with those who've expressed an interest and groups who are currently using facilities. We also did an acoustic report that was commissioned in September of 2023 in relation to considerations of parks. And we've also got some information in the report around construction costs and maintenance around these parks. There was some resistance to what was seen to be a diminishing of opportunity, particularly in small towns, around having fenced parks as opposed to off-leash areas. So the new update reflects on that. But if there is further feedback in the coming months and years, we can always go back in and adjust that as required on a town-by-town basis. We still need to explore external funding in relation to all of this work. In Churchill, the location was to look towards some opportunities for the size of the site and tolerance in proximity to neighbouring properties. Toners Lane, Morwell, we were looking at compatibility around the Obedience Dog Club and their proximate location, and the Traralgon location. The feedback we've had overwhelmingly has been that the current site is not suitable, the size and scale is not appropriate, and that the newly recommended location is more suited to the purpose. Happy to recommend the report and further conversations with the Greyhound Group. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor O'Callaghan has explained all the detail of this process. It's been going on for quite some time, and I don't think it would be a good idea to hold the process up to look at another submission. So I totally support endorsing the plan that is here before us, and let's get into it and let's start looking for funding. However, I'm more than happy to have further conversations with the Latrobe Greyhound Group. I must admit the submission came as a bit of a shock to me. I didn't realise how many pet, as opposed to racing, greyhounds were in our community. Very large dogs, very fast. There was, Mr Roberts, I think it was made a very good case for that. So I'm quite prepared, and this motion suggests that we have further talks around the particular requirements of the greyhounds. But even that, if we took that path, we should not hold up all the work that's been done on the dog parks. So I think Councillor O'Callaghan's amendment here, or alternate motion, probably meets both requests there. So happy to endorse it. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Minimis. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak on this motion? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote. All in favour? Okay, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Howard, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Law, Councillor Minimis and myself. The alternative motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Business under 8.3, Councillor Harriman, I note you.
Have a alt, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so we're up to petition requesting changes to the government's rules, which commences on page 325 of the agenda. Councillor Harriman has moved an alternative motion, which we all should have in front of us. Would we like a minute to read it? Is everyone happy to proceed? Okay. So it's been moved by Councillor Harriman. Do we have a seconder, please? Yep, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Do we have any opposition? Opposition, Councillor Law. Okay, so over to you, Councillor Harriman, to speak.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I do bring this up for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I look back at item 6.1, the consultation results of the proposed reopening of Chestnut Avenue. We received a petition, we engaged with those petitioners, and we came up with a result from it. That's what I'm asking to have happen here. We've had a petition, we haven't engaged, we've basically said no. What this alternate motion puts up is that officers and interested councillors meet with the head petitioner to discuss petition options available at other councils and how they may be considered by council as part of an amended set of Latrobe City governance rules. It's not about wholesale change, it's about actually engaging with our community. From what I've been told, the 100 signatures or 102 signatures on this petition are the second most we've received. Therefore, we have a large proportion of our community are obviously wanting some form of change. There's also the ambiguity of the information, as pointed out by the CEO in the report. I just think we need to get to the bottom of what information there is, benchmark it against other councils, and get that information so that it is understandable, so that it is usable, and that it can be a report brought back to this council with the correct information in there. I look at it this way, councillors. Petitions are the way for the community to let us know, one of the ways for the community to let us know what they want. We've had a part of our community come forward and say they want changes to how petitions are done. It behoves us to actually engage, to actually engage with those petitioners, with the head petitioner, to sit down and go through and work out a solution that may be more amenable, that works better, that is something that can be used by the whole community. And as was stated today by Mrs Reid, there's a lot of people can't use e-petitions and need other options. We need to make it easier for those people to actually get a petition and put it in. It's a way for our community to come to us and tell us what they're thinking, what they need, what they want, what changes they're after. The fact that we're restricting it to the extent we are is not opening it up to all the community. It's not making it easy for all our community, and we need to have something in there that's going to make this a lot more accessible without going overboard. We don't, as I said, I don't think it's came up tonight, we don't need petitions with 2,000 words in them, and I don't think that was the head petitioner's intention. What it was is let's have a discussion and look at how we can make it better, easier for our ratepayers to put stuff before this council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Okay, Councillor Ferguson, you seconded. Would you like to speak at this stage?
Yes, thank you. I also agree because I think that things evolve naturally and we have to think of all sections of the community, as I mentioned earlier. I think time-poor people need other options as well, to use other platforms. So I think it's good to have this discussion. And, 100 people it's not just, 2 or 3 people or 4 people putting in a complaint, for example. It's 100 people putting in a petition. And it's really worth listening to. And I think it's only fair that the people get more say with this. Petitions are a right. And if we're going to restrict that, then we've got to think about reputation. And if we're going to be stricter than other councils, that's not a good look. It's not friendly to the community. So I 100% back this alt motion. And I think working with our community and those that were concerned, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If we did it with Chestnut Avenue, for example, like Councillor Harriman was saying, then why on earth aren't these 100 people just as important with their issue? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Law, you're in opposition?
Yes. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just believe that the work that our governance team has done has come up with a set of guidelines and rules that meets the standards of local government. And I'm firmly of the belief that our council officers are open to anyone within the public to come in, knock on their door and get any petition up and running that suits their needs. We do not turn people away because they can't put a petition up. The e-platform nowadays is the way of the world. I know it does preclude a lot of older people, but I'm certain that our council officers could help anyone of any demographic get a petition up that is relevant that this council needs to deal with. I don't believe this is relevant to council, the petition that's been put by this head petition. Our governance has done the right thing and given us strict guidelines, and I firmly believe that we should oppose the change that Councillor Harriman has put up.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Any other councillors wish to speak on this motion? Yes, Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Only 6 months ago, we went out to our community and put out our rules and involving the governance rules at the public consultation. And following that consultation, only 6 months ago, we adopted the current rules. And I'm loath to understand how what our community felt was acceptable 6 months ago is now unacceptable. And let me go back a little here. Let me go back to the one we looked at the start of this meeting. That was a petition lodged by a group of people to be heard by this council, and in fact on investigation they were outnumbered 4 to 1 by the people who opposed them. We don't want that petition is what they're told. So there's a lot more to petitioning than just saying this is the word of the people. It's the word of some people. Now, I'm quite convinced that if anybody wants to put a petition before this council, it can be done. Council officers will help them. There is a process outlined there. These constant nibbling away at small stuff. We've taken this out to public consultation 6 months ago and it's been accepted. This constant wishing to change, to adapt to some people. We have a system in place where anybody can front up at the council office and say, I'm thinking of starting a petition. Right, this is how you do it. And it will come before this council. Nobody's excluded from that process. It really would take a lot of convincing to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Do we have any? Yes, Councillor Clancy.
Thanks very much. I think we've just spoken about, the other councillors spoken about Chestnut Avenue and this petition as well. We've had 2 petitions come through just tonight in this council meeting, and we see them come through quite often, and sometimes they come sitting before this council and we just say, we note that and we contact them and say thank you, and other times there's petitions that actually, affect change. I think it was said by one of the speakers tonight that the fact that this petition here has got to this council meeting kind of shows that it works. The system actually works. And even though there could be changes and the governance rules are reviewed every 12 months, I think at the moment the current system says that it works, that petitions are able to come through, and as Councillor Law has highlighted, officers will work with people if they need to do petitions, whether that be whatever format they are, if they want to mount one or they just want to sign one. I think that there's the system that we currently have in place is working, and the fact that this petition has arrived at, in front of this council, and we're even debating it, is proof in the pudding that the governance rules for petitions, as they currently are, work. It doesn't mean that we don't get to review them at the 12-month mark when the governance rules come around. And I think that, as Councillor Middlemas has said, we've just done that. We've done that, within 6 months. So I would be reticent to look at that and try to revisit the changes that we've just recently adopted as well. So I'm happy with the original officer's recommendation and oppose the alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak? Okay, Councillor Harriman, you get a right of reply.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I will. Two things. Councillors, we did have objections to these rules when they came in. The community did, at that change to the governance rules, object to a lot of them. This is just a continuation. We took no notice at the governance rules. When the objections came in, we took no notice of them. We made no changes. We didn't listen to the community. This has led to the petition coming in. The fact that we heard tonight that the head petitioner wasn't contacted 4 weeks after putting the petition in. We're hearing our officers will help. 4 weeks after the petition was put in, still hadn't heard and found out it was online. We've heard tonight from the CEO that there's an ambiguity of information in the report that the officers based their decision not to make any changes on. There's a lot there to look at, councillors. What we're asking for is to sit down and talk to the head petitioner about them, with councillors, with officers, and to bring a further report back. It's about getting the right information and the right facts before this council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Okay, so we'll now put the alternative motion to the vote. All in favour? So we've got Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman. All against? So against we've got Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Law, Councillor Middlemas, Councillor O'Callaghan and myself. So the alternative motion has been lost. So we bounce back to the original motion. And Councillor Hill, you're moving. Then we'll have somebody, Councillor Lund is seconding. Do we have any opposition? Councillor Harriman in opposition. Okay, Councillor Law, the floor is yours.
I think everything's been said in the last debate, so happy to move.
Thank you. Councillor Middlemas, you second. Would you like to speak? Oh, sorry, Councillor Lund. Sorry,
Councillor Lund seconded.
Sorry, Councillor Lund. My apologies. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. I will. I'll take a minute if that's
Fantastic.
okay.
Yes.
So first of all, I want to acknowledge the exceptional work the officers have done in preparing these reports. I support the officers' recommendations not to make changes at this time. Through petitions, residents have a platform to raise significant concerns within our community with the assurance that their voices can be heard. Our current petition guidelines are designed to align with our governance rules, fostering a transparent and inclusive process. Our governance rules underwent community consultation in July and August last year, during which no issues regarding the petition process were raised. This highlights the community's confidence in our approach to petition and affirms the effectiveness of our governance rules. Our petition options, developed in accordance with governance rules, provide both a digital and a paper format, ensuring accessibility for all our residents. This diversity in pathways allows residents to engage with local issues in a manner that best suits their preferences and their circumstances. The word limit ensures clarity and consistency in petition requests, and this then helps our understanding and informs our decision-making within council. Above all, residents can trust that their personal details will be kept in confidence when signing petitions in alignment with our governance rules, and I think that's a very, very important point to make. So thank you.
I think I made my points before, Mr Mayor.
No worries. Okay, anyone else, any other councillors wish to speak to this tonight? Okay, we shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Okay, we've got Councillor Clancy, we've got Councillor Lund, we've got Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law, Councillor Howe, myself. All against? We've got Councillor Ferguson and we've got Councillor Harriman. So this motion has been passed. Thank you, councillors. Okay, we're up to 8.4, which is the draft 2024-2025 budget. Preliminary approval and public exhibition. This commences on page 334 of the agenda. Councillors, do we have a motion? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Middlemiss and seconded by Councillor Law. Do we have any opposition, councillors? Opposition, Councillor Harriman. Okay, Councillor Middlemiss. And I only need one, sorry. But thank you. Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Each year, Council puts out a budget of how it intends to spend its revenue and the services that will flow from that and the advantages that will flow from that for its ratepayers. This is that process. What we do is we arrive, with the councillors working together with our officers, we arrive at a budget, and then the first step is to make it publicly available for comment, and that is this step we have before us at the moment. So what we're doing is we are putting this budget out for the community to have a look at, to get feedback, and then in the timeframe spelt out in the motion, it will come back to the council for a final decision, in other words, to be endorsed. This budget, I think people would have picked up the little undertone in the meeting earlier about rate capping, restrains our expenditure. And this budget has largely been framed around what the officers call BAU, business as usual. In other words, we don't withdraw any services that are being provided currently. And with the money that is available after that, we adopt a capital works program. And where most people see the capital works program is their road being resealed, their gutters being renewed, all that kind of stuff. So this, what you have before you, is largely the work of the council's officers as guided by the councils. It is a budget is proposing business as usual, no reduction in no loss of services, and it is being put out for public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Councillor Law? Reserved. Okay. Councillor Harriman, you are in opposition?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Don't oppose this going out to the public. I think it's a great idea. It's something we need to do. My concern is the same as it has been a number of years in the past, for a number of years, is that we're putting the full burden of all costs back onto the ratepayer. We have a 2.75% increase. We have, other than the jobs cut through the federal government changes to home care, we have no cuts to council at all. We're putting the full cost onto the ratepayers. We're not bearing any ourselves. We look at the costs in using our facilities have all gone up. We look at the costs in using our services have all gone up, except for waste, which was reduced by 7.5% because the state government brought in funding to cut out any costs other than those related directly to the removal of waste. Now, I have issues with that as well, but that's another point. But again, the ratepayers are wearing the full cost. We have not worn any of that burden. And year after year after year, we keep putting the burden on the ratepayers. We put the burden on those using our facilities. We put the burden on those kids trying to play a sport. We put a burden this year when there's a huge cost of living crisis in our community, and we're still putting that burden fully on the ratepayers and on our community members and not wearing any of that burden ourselves. That is why I'm opposing this budget. I don't believe that we can continue down this path because it's going to get to the point, and I believe this is a year, where a number of people will be pulling their kids out of sport, will be pulling their kids out of going to events, will be pulling their kids out of learning to swim, will be pulling their kids out of playing basketball, football, cricket, because the cost of doing so will be too much. It'll be the year where we're going to get a number of people unable to pay their rates, and we keep putting those costs back onto the ratepayer. It's time we wore part of that burden. So that's why I'm opposed to it. If we had borne some of the cost, I wouldn't have a problem. But we haven't, and I don't think we can just continue down this path of throwing it onto the ratepayer. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak? Okay, over to you, Councillor Law.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just clearly, this is a draft budget, but I take the opposite view of what fellow councillor Harriman has just said. I think our officers have provided a very, very conservative budget. We've got no new borrowings for the forthcoming year. We have been restricted by rate capping, as Councillor Misselmis has said, with approximately more than 65% of our budget coming from ratepayers. We have no choice but to impose whatever minimal increases to our rates to cover costs. We are not immune, like our ratepayers, to increase costs. We have to pay more for contracts, we have to more pay for all services, everything we tender gets dearer. So we have no choice at any point but to pass on the rates. But I think our officers, by being prudent and running a very conservative budget, have put out minimal costs across the community for all people involved to pay the minimal amount. And as tough as it is, we all are in the same boat. We are a business the same as anybody else, and we have to run it as financially as we can to make it in the best possible scenario where we don't overspend. And I think we're doing a very good job. Our council officers are doing a very good job at that. So I'm very happy with this draft budget to be presented to our constituents.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Middlemiss, we've had opposition, so you do get a right reply, sir.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I did emphasise the term BAU, business as usual. What we've done is, through very conservative management, as Councillor Law has said, we have held the budget to the state rate cap of 2.75% increase to enable us to keep providing the services we provide at the moment. And that's the key to this. We can cut. We can cut. We could cut out the complete kindergarten system. We could close the libraries. Instead of sealing your local street every 20 odd years or so, we could seal it every 50 years. We could save cuts like that. But these type of cuts will result in a lowering of the standard of the services to our community, which upholds our community. Now, each of us run across people all the time wishing to discuss services, what the council's doing on that. I am not picking up any feeling from the community that they want to cut services, that they want to cut back, sell half your cars, sack half your staff. I'm not picking that stuff up at all. What I'm picking up from the community is, times are tough. We would love to keep going like we are now, providing the services we are. And that's what the councillors, working with the officers, and there is plenty of dissent back and forward in that process, have largely come up with a draft budget that keeps us providing the services that back up and hold up our community. That's what's before you. It's a draft budget. I think we'll all look forward to the feedback from the community as what their views are on this. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. We should now put it to the vote. So all in favour? Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. All against? We've got Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Harriman. This motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, it's now 4 minutes to 8, councillors. I propose we have a 14-minute break, which will bring us back at 8:10. So if everyone's happy with that, we can go grab a coffee and a bicky and have a chat, and I'll see everyone back on deck at 8:10. Beautiful. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Apologies to the gallery for the coffee and tea mix-up. I hope you've now given your orders and you'll get your beverage very shortly. Okay, we're up to item number 8.5, which is the Latrobe Regional Airport Community Assets Committee vacancy. This commences on page 335 of the agenda. Councillors, do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Moved, seconded by Councillor Harriman. Do we have any opposition, councillors? Okay, over to you, Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of the Committee of Management has resigned because of some family problems. That doesn't sound right, because of illness of his wife. And the committee only has a few months to run, at which point the council will throw it open and seek applications. So to keep the committee to the correct size, hold a quorum, etc., we have approached Mr Alan Wilson, who's a well-known Traralgon businessman, with a particularly strong interest in the valley going ahead. We've approached him to fill the vacant spot for a few months until the committee comes up for re-election or renomination. So I'm happy to move that Mr Wilson be appointed for the remaining term of the committee, which expires in September 24.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Really happy to second this. I know Alan Wilson really well. For those that don't know Alan, ran Alan Wilson Insurance Brokers, but on a community front is part of Champions of the Bush for Gippsland, advocating for a better deal for Gippsland as a whole. He's served on GERF for a number of years, the Gippsland Emergency Relief Fund, been President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, just about everything from City of Traralgon Band, and was instrumental in it doing a tour of the cemeteries on the Western Front in 2015, has sponsored so many local community groups, has been part of so many charitable groups, and I think he'll make a great addition to the board.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Okay, so in that, let's move to the vote. All in favour? Okay, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, next item is 8.6, which is the closing off of the project reference group for the Moe Rail Trail Stage 2. This commences on page 340 of the agenda. Councillor Law, I note you as moving. Councillor Lund, you're happy to second. Do I have any opposition, please? Okay, Councillor Law, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think I do on this one. This has been a phenomenal project. The project reference group has overseen the development of the skate park and the new facility there right next to our library, next to the railway line. It's happy to say, like on the weekend, there was hundreds of kids in there skating and that. I know it's school holidays, but it's a great outlet for our community. And I think our project reference group played a huge part of actually getting this project probably with the right amount of community feel to it, with the inclusion of some what I call shelters and barbecues and things like that, to give it an area that gave a lot back to the elderly people in our community that could actually watch their grandkids and that flying around in the skate park. So, yeah, I would like to close this off after a successful project, brought in under budget, and it was a great asset to the Moe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Lund.
Nothing to add, thank you. I think Councillor Law has covered it off.
Okay. Any other councillors wish to speak? Okay, so shall I put it to the vote? All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. This motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 8.7. That's the draft risk management policy and fraud and corruption control policy. This commences on page 356 of the agenda. Councillors, Councillor Law, you're moving. Councillor Middlemiss, you're seconding. Thank you. Do we have any opposition? Okay, over to you, Councillor Law.
Thanks again, Mr Mayor. This is purely from the Audit and Risk Committee that looks at these policies and how they're worked and brought back through our council offices. We've got a very good structure in place at the moment. Everything is working as it should be, and our council officers have been commended by the Audit and Risk Committee for the work that they have done in implementing these policies and updating them especially and bringing them all into line. So happy to move this draft policy for the fraud and corruption.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Middlemiss, would you like to speak?
I'm only the alternate delegate to the Audit Committee. I think the actual delegate has already covered it very well, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Would any other councillor wish to speak? Okay, so we shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Mills, Councillor Law and myself. This motion has been carried. Thank you. Okay, item 8.8, which is the authorisation of council officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, which commences on page 374 of the agenda. Councillor Middlemiss is moving. Do we get a seconder, please? Councillor Harriman to second. Over to you, Councillor Middlemiss.
So close to procedural, I don't think I'll speak.
No worries. Thank you. No speakers, no vote required, so it's carried. Thank you. We're up to 8.9, which is the road facility and place naming, which commences on page 381. Moved again. Councillor Middlemiss, thank you. Do we get a seconder? Yep. Councillor Callaghan to second. Councillor Callaghan, you're seconding. Any opposition tonight? Okay, over to you, Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't intend to go back and summarise all the steps on this 12-year process. It's taken a long time. But effectively what is happening here is council is taking over the naming rights of streets, facilities, anything in our community that has a name. And I'm certainly of the view that that's where we should have been right from the start. We should be able to control what the streets in our various towns are, who they're named after. There is a process spelt out here as to what the eligibility for naming shall be and how we'll invite the public to nominate names. We're going to work on the actual workings of the process and get that through. But we put a lot of work into this over the last 12 years or so. Even today, I got 2 phone calls, one from a gentleman wishing to start the process to name a part of a sporting facility after a stalwart of their club. Whereas a quick reading of the guidelines we're proposing, it does appear that that person has to be dead, and he's not. But we have in the past found ways around that. There is a club room on the Latrobe Reserve in Maule, named after a long-standing... Move up closer? Right, okay. There's a club room in Maule named after a long-standing member of a club there, and that person was alive when it was named. And of course we've got the Peter Siddle Oval in Maule. And again, Peter is, last time I read the newspaper, still alive, still playing cricket, I believe, in India. But so no doubt that the approach I had today will be able to be woven into the process. The other call I got today was, it was a note, was a person concerned about more widely spreading the information out there. But I think our press releases, our page in the Express and that, all that will cover this. In other words, anybody is able to nominate, propose a name, alongside meets the guidelines we've put there. But really, this comes down to council taking back control, making sure those who deserve recognition in our community get it, and that, of course, includes the First Peoples. So I have no hesitation in recommending this procedure to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I wanted to recognise Councillor Middlemiss for all of the work that he's undertaken in relation to this. He's such a patient person, and and he does have a particular interest in continuing these conversations, and also like to acknowledge Rob de Souza Dore for the generous way that he's provided guidance, but also the opportunity for other community members to provide us with feedback as well. This does provide us with a much greater level of clarity around recognition, and some of the categories that are outlined, and it's not a limiting factor in what we can consider, but those who've served in Australian conflicts, names of historical significance, and that could be events or moments in Latrobe City, but it could also be something further afield. Our First Nations communities, indication of flora, fauna and geographic features, names of families who've had a long association with the municipality, and both in a developmental sense but also in other areas of contribution. Community service is obviously reflected, and then it goes on to recognise those who've had a role to play in terms of leadership within the municipality, and Councillor Middlemiss has already referenced, of course, contributions to sporting life. But as we do tend to reflect in a range of other factors that we consider, those events of cultural significance that contribute to our communities as well, as often contribution is one that is not just limited to those previously indicated areas. Councillor Middlemiss has indicated that there's the opportunity for our officers to then undertake a broad range of work and effectively a campaign of notification to community around how we advise that there is this opportunity available, how people can bring together that information, what it is that we would like to be able to consider, and how that can be reflected back in terms of appropriate credentialing and consideration by council. I know Councillor Clancy and I had the opportunity at the point in time to consider the Morwell Rec Reserve, Morwell Football Netball Club's consideration of the reflection of the memorialisation of Stan Morgan in relation to the grandstand at the Morwell Rec Reserve. A lot of those opportunities are informed by communities bringing information, giving context to what it is they're seeking to have us look towards and what they'd like the council to consider more broadly. And this opportunity also reflects in shaping up those pathways to help the community understand how they can bring information to us and what it would need to look like, so that it isn't a difficult process and it is indeed accessible. And of course, there are a lot of historical societies and organisations who have a significant role, and historians such as Mr de Souza Dore, who have a significant level of context around information that is readily available that we can utilise. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Right on the buzzer again. Unbelievable. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak to this motion tonight? Okay, so we shall go to the vote. All in favour? Okay, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lunn, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 8 point... Yes, 8 point... Just on that, he was going to retire 4 elections ago, but he's been hanging around for this one. Okay, 8.10, which is the opening item for council meeting agenda. I note you, Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Moving an alt, if I may.
Okay, so the alternate motion is up on the screen now. It's a quick one, so it won't take long to read. Do we have...
Happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Callaghan, no worries. Do you have any opposition tonight, councillors? Okay, Councillor Harriman, it's over to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's just that this motion relates to a notice of motion put up by Councillor Gibson, who for reasons beyond her control is unable to be here tonight, so I just wish to defer it till next meeting so that she can be here and discuss it and debate it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Harriman, Councillor Callaghan.
Consistent with Councillor Harriman's indication, if this was something that Councillor Gibson had a specific level of interest in, it was her originating notice of motion, so it's just fair and reasonable that she had the opportunity to speak to it. So just a procedural deferral to allow that to happen.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other councillors wish to speak to this? Okay, so I'll now put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman, we've got Councillor Clancy, Councillor Long, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself, so this motion has been carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is urgent business.
None of that, sorry.
You're just stretching the hamstring there.
Moving along.
Do any councillors have a motion for urgent business?
No. Maybe jumped a little early, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Let's move on to the 10s. Item 10's reports for noting. We have two items in this section report. Item 10.1 is the lease update for the Old Methodist Church, 39 Princess Street, Traralgon, commencing on page 402. Councillor Clancy.
I'm happy to move 10.1, thanks.
Hey. Do we have someone? Thank you, Councillor Harriman, the second.
And a stretch in between.
Do we?
So, yeah. That's, you know, when you do as many Ks as I do per week.
Do we have any opposition? Okay, Councillor Clancy, over to you.
Thanks very much. 10.1, I was a bit keen to jump up because this is one that's been hanging around, not as long as the Place Names Committee, the Councillor Middlemiss just moved for us. But in 2018, this we're talking about the Methodist Church, the old Methodist Church that sits on the highway in Traralgon near the train station for people who are following along. This Methodist Church was once housed our Visitor Information Centre, and in 2018 it was decided that the Visitor Information Centre would move to the new Performing Arts Centre, which it did so, and then opened in 2021 that opened. In 2021 of November, it was voted by this council to demolish that building. Which was, fair to say, and I remember voting for that at the time, was a fairly dark day and a very personal struggle to have a vote to demolish such a wonderful historic old building. The next month, in December 2021, I put a motion before this council that said we should not do that. We should roll back on that decision we made in November, and we should see if we could look at what future we could have for this Methodist Church. And since that time, this is December in 21, officers have been working, they've done expressions of interest, they've met with community members and things like that. All the way along this process, we've been working with a month-by-month lease with VicTrack, who own the land. Council own the church, VicTrack own the land. We've always had an understanding that VicTrack were never interested in signing another lease. Never interested in it. They were just happy to go month by month. This recommendation that puts us in front of us at the moment is to continue to engage with VicTrack towards entering into a new lease. Now, at last, they have finished the work that they've done at the Traralgon station. They've put their bus turns in. They've removed the peppercorn tree that was there, and now they've finished that work, stage one of that work. It is absolutely imperative of us now to take the time to say, let's talk about a lease. Let's put some surety in there. If we can sign a lease for that building to stay on their land, we can get a tenant in there. We could do all of those things that the community want to do with it, whether it's Devonshire Teas, whether it's art galleries, whether it's a commercial lease, whatever it is. But we can't do that when we're doing a month-to-month. So this recommendation sits here to engage with VicTrack further to see if we can enter into a lease for that land and receive a further report back when VicTrack provides an update. So thank you to the officers for their ongoing work. This is one way that we can continue to work towards saving this building, making sure that that heritage of our region is kept, and that we can get a lease, get some sureties, shore something up into the future, and do something meaningful with that building, because at the moment it's sitting there and we need to make sure that it stays there.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Clancy's covered most of it. I think the only thing to remind people is the reason this all came up at the start was because VicTrack determined that we couldn't extend the lease any further, that VicTrack wanted the building removed from its current site, and when officers went and looked at that, it was found not to be in a great state and probably wouldn't survive moving to another site. So we've been at VicTrack's whim and pleasure basically for a number of years, and all the angst that was started was over a bus turning circle that I believe they've put in already without having to demolish or having to use the land that the Methodist Church is on. So hopefully now that they no longer need it and no longer need it removed, or need that land and need the church removed, we can get a long-term lease with it. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Harriman. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak? Okay, let's go to the vote. All in favour? Okay, so Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Millimis, Councillor Law and myself. So this motion has been carried. Thank you. Next item is 10.2, the presentation of the Audit and Risk Committee minutes for the March 7, 2024, which commences on page 406 of the agenda. Councillor Law, happy to move. And Councillor Millimis, happy to second. Do we have any opposition tonight? Okay, over to you, Councillor Law.
Yeah, just to move that they are true and correct, the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee, and they are doing a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Millimis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually attended this meeting. The detail is in the minutes, which are attached, but what I emphasise regularly with people is if you look at the Audit and Risk Committee minutes, you'll see the close watch that is kept on the council finances by this externally qualified outsider group. This is a group of professionals, accounting professionals, who watch over our finances, watch over our offices, watch over councillors, etc. And it is well worth people who are interested in the detailed operation of councils to have a look at minutes like this. And as Councillor Law will no doubt say, it indicates how closely and well administered our finances are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millimis. Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Okay, so let's put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, we've got Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor O'Callaghan, Councillor Millimis, Councillor Law and myself. This motion has been carried. There are no questions on notice, so we move on to 12.1, notices of motion. We've got one tonight, which is the 2024 sponsorship of the Gippslandia magazine. So, Councillor Harriman, you're happy to move?
Happy to move, Mr Mayor.
And second is Councillor Ferguson. Do we have any opposition tonight, councillors? Okay, over to you, Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The reason I put this agenda notice of motion up was I am a fairly avid reader of Gippslandia. It's a not-for-profit. It runs no agenda other than promoting Latrobe Valley and Gippsland. Its aim and its purpose is to inspire locals. It only runs positive stories. It runs stories about our local people and their achievements. It runs local stories about local locations. It runs stories about great places to visit. It runs stories about great people that we produce here in Gippsland. It is positive the whole way through. And it gives a voice to some of those that aren't normally heard. It seeks out those that might be marginalised and gives them a voice, which I think is really, really important. At the moment, it's running at a loss and it's being subsidised by a couple of the people, one who spoke tonight, and those that are running it. It promotes Gippsland in a way that we don't see other media do. And then there's talk about it. I know, it's been spoken about that, if we put money into this, why aren't we putting money into other forms of media? I think if anybody picks up an Express, they'll see our good-looking mayor on the page 3 or page 5, and that's been going on for a number of years. There's a number of mayors from various Gippsland councils that are quite often speaking on radio, promoting their council, what their council's up to. So I think it only behoves us twice to ask our mayor to approach One Gippsland, who's the peak body for the councils within Gippsland, and ask each Gippsland council to provide an annual sponsorship of $5,000 to support the ongoing publication of Gippslandia. Now, one of the important things with Gippslandia is it provides an opportunity for those without experience and the young, whether they be artists, storytellers, journalists, photographers, podcasters. It gives them a chance to be immersed in the industry and to gain experience. It gives them a chance that they don't get at for-profit organisations, but it gives them a chance to get the experience to go and work for those organisations, follow their dreams, but to do so without an agenda being forced on them other than the benefit of Gippsland. We talk about promoting council and promoting our youth. Here's a perfect opportunity to do it. We know that they've done articles that have been of great benefit, particularly to the Performing Arts Centre, but to Morwell National Park. They've run stories on events run throughout Gippsland, art events, sporting events, community events, and they do so across the whole of Gippsland. So the idea of this is that we put a small amount of money up and it helps them continue on and it helps them continue to provide a pathway for those of the younger members of our community, but also to continue to inspire the community of Gippsland and those outside Gippsland on how good this region is. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. I've been an admirer of Gippslandia magazine for many years and have worked with them. I think they've got a unique approach, and I think that it encourages people to step outside the square and try new ventures and contribute new things to Gippsland. And I think the examples that you see in their magazine regularly just shows people that anything can be achievable, and I can't think of a better message. And a very reputable not-for-profit. How do you tell a reputable not-for-profit? They're apolitical. And they're apolitical all the way, which means there's something in it for everybody. And it's inclusive for the whole community. And I think it would be a real shame not to see that supported and to continue on, because it's exactly what people need. And with the cost of living and things, they need inspiration to try and go out there and start perhaps their own ventures to move ahead in the world. And if we can provide examples of people that otherwise would have been overlooked or forgotten about, and Gippslandia can bring Gippslandia magazine can bring them people forward for inspiration, why would we not support that? Like, that would be a crying shame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Clancy, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks to Councillor Harriman for bringing this forward. Gippslandia is a fantastic publication, and like the other councillors have spoken, I've followed it closely along for the years. It's a great read and always well put together by Tim and the team. One of the things that would certainly I'm going to support, and I'm very happy to support this notice of motion. One of the things here, it talks in the notice of motion, is that we provide an annual sponsorship. It's always difficult with council on sponsorship. And I'm not sure if that is the correct approach on this, but I think that it certainly opens the door in the discussion, and I'm very happy to support as written this evening. But I think that one of the things that we also have to recognise is that newspapers or any media that is a commercial entity, much like this is, the way that they work and the way that they think is people need to buy column inches. And as much as we can't put a notice of motion to say let's put some ads in the paper, I would say to the other businesses within Gippsland to read Gippslandia and have a bit of a look at it and see the value and see the readership and see the reach. And for other big businesses who are currently spending their marketing or advertising dollars elsewhere within Gippsland, to have a look at Gippslandia and buy some column inches. There's some value in it, and as the other councillors have said, it is a very positive and great approach. So I think that there's something that we can do as a council here in Latrobe and the other councillors in Gippsland through the One Gippsland Peak Body Group to advocate for good messaging. And I think that this notice of motion has that here. Whether we do get an annual sponsorship of 5,000 from each of the councils or not, that probably doesn't really matter. What it does is it puts it on the agenda to say there is something that is positive and something that is good within our region. There is something that is wholesome and something that is working, and people need to get behind that. This is homegrown. This is something that people saw a need and it's working. And I think that for us, showing some leadership to say we're going to support this is a really, really good thing. So I'm very happy to support the notice of motion as it's been put. Very happy and thank Councillor Harriman for his work on this, and for the Gippslandians who spoke to us tonight, and for the other ones who are sitting in the background as well. Get behind local people and support locals, because they're trying to do the right thing by us and we need to do the right thing by them.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Would any other councillors wish to speak on this motion? Yes, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the nature of these things, Councillor Clancy has covered off adequately in terms of the commercialisation of these things and the changes in the way communications occur across the region. I don't have any issue with this necessarily being considered or put before One Gippsland. I'm not sure what their perspectives will be in relation to that, but I just wanted to take the opportunity just to reflect on a piece which was presented through Gippslandia, but also on their website as well. And this was Don't Stop the Press. Gippslandia's General Manager Michael Duncan shares the lay of the land and outlines the future of the paper and presents ideas to keep Gippslandia flying off the printing press. So if anyone wants to have a read of that, specifically initially dated March 6th of 2023, but it does give reference to Michael's consideration, and many will be familiar with Michael not only in this work but in some of his sporting pursuits across the region. He's fairly well known to many, but in celebrating the 30th edition of Gippslandia, gave a reflection of what opportunities this can potentially create, and not just for the cohort who are bringing together Gippslandia now, but those who could potentially pick this up into the future and be able to tell the stories and share the opportunities, and particularly help to see the stories of Gippsland be able to be told and see them flourish in a broader sense over a period of time. I think one of the challenges that has certainly been the case for this particular group in bringing these opportunities together is that as communities go through changes in terms of the way they use information, and as Councillor Clancy indicated, sometimes the investment that comes out of things like advertising and contribution isn't necessarily as clearly articulated. I think there is some further work that could be done in relation to that. I too am not sure whether it's a sponsorship mechanism or whether there's arrangements in place around how these things could be considered, but that's not something for us specifically. But on the face of it, and on the basis of some of the words written by Mr Duncan in his reflections, I think it's reasonable to at least give this a pass by our broader Gippsland colleagues at One Gippsland, get their perspectives in relation to it and see how they feel in relation to this particular opportunity, what it means for Gippsland, and whether they see a role for the councils more broadly as a collective group to be continuing to share stories and opportunities in this way. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Any other councillors wish to speak? Okay, we shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Minister, Councillor Law, and myself. So this motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We're now into the 13s items for tabling. So 13.1 is the tabling of Audit and Risk Committee biannual report and annual self-assessment commencing on page 430 of the agenda. Councillors, Councillor Law to move and Councillor Middlemiss to second. Do we have any opposition, councillors? Okay, over to you, Councillor Law.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is the fourth audit and risk thing we've had tonight, so we're really kicking a lot of goals.
I thought you were a shy guy.
We actually had David Cordham, our chairman, speak earlier this evening about the tabling of this report. It is actually under the legislative requirements of state government that we actually have to do this. So all we're doing here is just fulfilling the component of the biannual report and the self-assessment report for the state government. So it's a governance thing and we're just doing it.
Oh,
and it's all good.
Councillor Middlemiss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Been on council a long time, and council is never without a body of critics from different angles, etc. And the current criticisms that are being thrown at it are lack of transparency. Now, somebody merely picking up these reports and reading them, there could be nothing more transparent. Here are the financial operation of the council laid out for all to see. The report is compiled by an independent body of professional people, as I've said, and any error, any mistake, anything out of the ordinary is highlighted in here. You'll be going to find them because we aren't out of the ordinary, that's for sure. So when it comes to transparency, rather than shouting about lack of transparency, I would urge people, and I'll urge them again, to pick up reports like this and read them. Pick up the draft budget, which has just been passed. Have a look through that. You'll see all the detail. Every road that's to be resurfaced, every program, etc. So this is just another brick in the wall of transparency. We are an exceptionally transparent organisation, and these are the kind of reports that people who have concerns about transparency or lack of transparency should be reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middlemiss. Any other councillors wish to speak? No? Okay, so put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harriman, Councillor Clancy, Councillor Lund, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Middlemiss, Councillor Law and myself, so this motion has been carried. Okay, we move on to 14, which is acknowledgements. At times it's appropriate for a council to acknowledge or recognise achievements of individual or groups, or note of detail the achievements or passing of a person who is associated with council or the community at a council meeting. Do we have any yes? Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have a few to run through. I know my colleagues probably have some others to offer up as well. I just wanted to acknowledge Roy Arnold and the Court Club crew for all of the work they did in relation to the Good Friday appeal. A number of organisations involved, but clearly the volunteers that undertake that activity do so not only during that event but in the lead up to, and it was good to catch up with Roy and have a conversation with him about that, and also be able to see so many people thoroughly enjoying the opportunity, given that there are so many activities that they undertake throughout the year. So I wanted to acknowledge them for that. But I did also want to just reflect on the very sad news of the passing of Ron Haitley, and many of us will know Mr Haitley from baseball times. He was a significant contributor to the sport locally, founding member of Moore Cougars Baseball Club. He was both a player and official and well-respected umpire in the Latrobe Valley Baseball Association, and often officiated at the state champs, which we hold locally. So I just wanted to offer our condolences to Mr Haitley's family. Unfortunately, the nature of us only meeting once a month, as it means that there are some other acknowledgements of a similar nature. But it was also very sad to hear the passing of veteran race caller and radio announcer Peter Eustace, who many would be familiar with. And he was a very dear friend, my grandfather Jacko, and I know Mr Roberts spoke to us earlier, but many of those who are aligned to supporting activities around particularly the greyhounds, and made a significant contribution to industry around the Gippsland community as well. And I know maybe one of my colleagues may have worked with Mr Eustace in the past, as he was also a significant contributor on air, I think to ABC Radio. And we also, in recent weeks, acknowledge the passing of Elsie McMaster, and many would have very fond memories of Mrs McMaster and her kindness and generosity, and I did see a lot of recollections of those who had Mrs McMaster as their geography teacher at Morwell High, going back way in the day, but she then also made a very significant contribution to the Morwell Historical Society, and that is certainly one that will be enduring, and we pass on our most sincere condolences to Mrs McMaster's family as well.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Clancy.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge the 9th birthday of Terrelgan Park Run on the weekend just gone. The 9th birthday. This is Park Run, for those who, obviously we've all participated and had a run at Park Run, but Park Run is a free timed event, and it happens every single Saturday across the world. And I've been very lucky not only to be one of the people who ran 9 years ago at the Terrelgan Park Run when it first started, but I've been lucky enough to run in park runs all the way around the world, and it is a wonderful thing. But what Terrelgan makes very, very different is the friendliness and the invitation of people. So they celebrated their 9th birthday, and obviously they've got 10 next year. But in that 9 years, they have had 416 runs. Every Saturday they do Christmas Day as well, and they do the special runs on top of that. In that 9 years, they've had 49,136 people cross the line, finish as they go, okay? Which equates to around 4,500 individual people who go to the parkrun. So this was something that just didn't exist before 9 years ago. And there was a group of 5 people that started that. Brooke, who was a local news reporter at Win TV, and Sarge, Tanya Wrong, and Paul and Will Hanrahan decided that they'd all get together and they would make an application to Parkrun Australia to put Traralgon on there, and Traralgon was the first Gippsland one. So they celebrated their 9th. Clearly we have Churchill now, we have Newborough now as well, but it's a great place for people to connect. It's a great place for people to walk, talk, meet new people, a great place to volunteer. There's been 526 volunteer people who have participated since that 9 years started. So happy birthday to Traralgon Parkrun, and continue to do the great work in connecting community to keep people active and keep people in a good headspace as they walk around and have a chat with other people, and for the hardcore runners like myself thank you for that laugh. No, I just wanted to say happy birthday to and congratulations on 9 years.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. You just cramped up sitting there for 2 hours, but I won't bring that up. Do we have any other councillors wishing? Yes, Councillor Harriman. Oh, sorry. Certainly, sir. Councillor Middlemiss.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge that 2 weeks ago was the 40th anniversary of the Morwell East Senior Citizens Club. I went along and represented council at that function, and it provides a great service for the people in, I suppose, what we would call Morwell East, for retired people. And the most interesting thing I took from it is when they were formed in '84, the numbers who attend today are still exactly the same. It's still serving a large lump, that's the wrong word for those people, isn't it? A large group of the senior citizens in the Morwell East area. They do a great job, and their catering was exceptional, I must add. But congratulations to them remaining so active. I think they closed for 1 year because of COVID. That's in the whole 40 years. May they continue with the same strength, and there's no doubt that they will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Over the weekend and through today, we actually had the Basketball Victorian Country had their under-14 championships on, and we've had 2 teams from Traralgon, the under-14 boys and under-14 girls, travel all the way up to Mildura. Quite a long trip, and they're still up there. We've had some fairly decent results, and I just want to congratulate the under-14 girls who have made the Div 2 finals. Not sure how far they've actually got because I haven't been able to keep up while we've been in the council meeting. And the under-14 boys who not only made the Div 1 finals but finished top 4 and were just pipped in a semi-final by the ultimate winner. So just wanted to congratulate both those teams on an outstanding performance. To go to a state championships and make top 4 is an exceptional effort for the boys. To make Div 2 finals is absolutely outstanding as well. That puts them in the top 16 teams in the state. So congratulations to the under-14 T-Bird girls as well. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harriman. Do we have any other councillors? Yes, Councillor Lund.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very quickly, I'd just like to acknowledge that Yanar turned 50 years today. I'll start again. 150 years this year, and the Mayor and I were privileged enough to attend their anniversary dinner. It was a lovely celebration, a full house. So certainly acknowledgements needs to go to Roxanne and Sky from the Yanar District Community Association and the whole volunteer team that worked really hard to bring that together. 150 years of township is really a significant milestone, and certainly one that we should acknowledge. But I think one of the wonderful things about Yanar is the vibrant community, inclusive atmosphere, and you're always made very, very welcome in that town. And I think there's, certainly that art community is very busy as well. But just overall, the invaluable contribution that Yinara makes to the region to be recognised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lund. Councillor Law.
I might be the last one. I always thought someone else might have said it, but I'd just like to acknowledge the passing of Bruce Allen from the Latrobe Valley Express, Managing Director, for over 30-odd years. He had the media and he produced some phenomenal outcomes for our community, both from a community point of view, from a council point of view, and his probably dedication to the media has been second to none in this area. And for someone that started the Big Blokes Barbecue with a couple of others to get it to the size it is and to ultimately be taken by the cancer that that event was organised for is just a tragedy. So it's saddening to someone that at that early age of life is taken by the big C. So to all those people at Latrobe Valley Express that would be doing a little bit tough, and from the council, I just endorse our condolences to Bruce Allen and his to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Any other councillors for an acknowledgement? Okay, it's 9:03, councillors. So
We move an extension.
okay, see everyone tomorrow night. You're happy to move?
Happy to move an extension of meeting times, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. You're happy to second?
Second that, although I take the comment from over here, I would prefer to come back tomorrow night.
Okay. So you're in opposition or you're second?
I'll support it just to get on with it.
You won't be here by yourself.
Okay, thank you. You wouldn't, obviously not speaking to it, so...
Oh, goodness.
Okay, thank you. So we'll consider that passed. Next on the agenda is item 15, close the meeting to the public to consider confidential information. So do we have a mover, please? Move Councillor Middlemiss, second Councillor Lund. Do we have any opposition? Would you like to speak? Okay, consider it passed. The meeting's closed to the public at 9:04 p.m.